All right, so we're diving into a submission today that's a really high-voltage political reaction piece.
High voltage is a good word for it.
It focuses on three pretty distinct events. Tim Walz testifying about ICE, a really chaotic traffic stop with an activist, and then Don Lemon protesting inside a church.
Right, and the whole thing is done in that reaction video style. He uses clips, very aggressive commentary, some biblical references.
And the central idea that the left is sort of, finding out after fooling around.
Yep, and the creator wants to make his arguments more robust, more logically sound, without losing that voice. So let's just get right into it.
Let's do it. So where do we start? The rhetorical strategy seems like the most obvious play. The language is very specific.
It is, and, that brings us to the first point. While the creator's passion is, it's completely evident, the heavy reliance on these repetitive ad hominem insults really undermines the serious legal and political points he's trying to make.
Okay, so walk me through that. Because this style, this internet blood sports thing, it kind of thrives on this language, right? Why is it a weakness here?
It is, but it puts a ceiling on the commentary. It defaults to the same set of words.
Right.
We hear retard, fat, lesbian, or bitch over and over. With the woman at the traffic stop, he calls her a retarded Karen and a fat retarded lesbian a bunch of times.
Mm-hmm.
And Don Lemon is the disgraced CNN host who was fired for being gay and retarded. Now, I get the subculture. I do.
Yeah.
But from an argumentation standpoint, it just weakens the whole thing. It lets a skeptical listener, someone who might be on the fence, just dismiss it all as, angry noise.
It's just vitriol at that point.
Exactly. It completely distracts from the video clips, which are actually really powerful on their own.
I get that. The risk is that the insults become the main event, not the behavior of the people in the clips.
That's it.
You want people talking about how absurd that traffic stop was, not about the narrator's choice of words. So how do we fix that? What's the suggestion?
The suggestion is to replace the personal insults with sharper wit, something that attacks the logic or the hypocrisy of the subjects.
Okay.
The goal is to let the subject's own actions be the joke. Let them ridicule themselves. You want the audience laughing at what the person did, not at a label you just stuck on them.
Let's make that concrete. Take the woman at the Portland traffic stop. How would you apply that there?
Okay, perfect example. The narrator focuses so much on her appearance, her orientation.
Right.
But that's not the funny part. The real gold is her shifting story.
Yeah, the pivot.
The pivot. She goes from being this, warrior standing up to ICE, physically blocking a car, to suddenly, I'm just a mom, the second she sees handcuffs.
That moment is incredible.
It's pure comedy. It exposes everything. So instead of just calling her names, you could say something like, watch how quickly the revolution dissolves into soccer mom the moment real consequences show up.
That stings more.
It stings way more because it attacks her character, her courage. It makes the audience laugh at her behavior, which is so much more devastating than her look.
Okay, and what about the Tim Walz segment? He gets a lot of the same treatment.
Same idea. The name calling is there, but the clip itself is it's brutal.
It is.
Walz gets asked a simple yes or no question. Was the Holocaust a unique atrocity? And he just squirmed. He can't answer it.
Right.
So instead of a slur, focus on that absurdity. You could say, watch a man who wants to be vice president struggle to clear the lowest bar in human history, admitting the Holocaust was bad.
Let his fumbling be the punchline.
Exactly. It makes the creator look sharper and Walz look weaker. It elevates the whole critique from a schoolyard taunt to like a forensic dismantling of his character.
That makes a ton of sense. It actually makes the creator look smarter than the subject, which is, at the end of the day, what you want.
Right.
Now, moving on from that, there's a really interesting mix of content. We have the politics, but then we get these deep dives into theology.
We do, and that leads right into our second point, which is all about tonal consistency. The juxtaposition of serious theological exegesis with really crude sexual humor creates this jarring disconnect. It just dilutes the moral authority of the argument.
Yeah, I noticed that. He's citing actual scripture, right, to make a pretty serious point.
A very serious point. He spends real time on Samuel, Joshua, Deuteronomy. These are heavy texts. And he's using them to make a nuanced point about God being just and ruthless, not just nice. It's a real theological argument.
Okay, so that's the serious part.
Right. But then that segment is literally sandwiched between comments about anal sex with P. Diddy, sucking the church, and fat lesbians.
Right, so it's hard to take the sermon seriously when it's bookended by that.
Exactly. It's like reading a Bible verse in the middle of a comedy roast. The rapid switch makes the religious conviction feel, I don't know, performative or just incoherent.
It sort of undermines itself.
It does. If you're going to claim the other side is the anti-God party, which he does, you need to bring a certain level of gravitas to make that stick. You can't really claim the moral high ground while, making D's nuts jokes in the same breath.
So how do you fix this without, stripping away the creator's personality? That edginess is the brand.
It's about segmenting the content more clearly. It's pacing, it's blocking. If you want to deliver a sermon on the difference between a nice God and a just God, commit to that.
Let it breathe.
Let it breathe. Give that serious tone its own space for that segment. Let the weight of the argument actually land before you pivot back to the jokes.
Can you give me a concrete example of that? In the script itself?
Sure. When he's talking about the protesters storming the church, which he frames as an anti-God movement, stick with that.
Okay.
Talk about the divine retribution idea, the sanctity of that space. Finish the thought completely. Don't immediately pivot to a joke about fat women. Let there be a beat of silence after the theological point.
Let the audience feel the weight of it.
Let them feel the seriousness of the trespass before you make them laugh again. Same thing with the Don Lemon stuff. Keep the biblical analysis of the Amalekites and borders separate from the commentary on his girl math about crime stats.
I see.
Allow the theological point to stand on its own. You can still have all the edgy humor, just, put it in the next paragraph. Don't mix the holy and the profane in the same sentence if you want the holy part to land.
That's very clear. It's about signaling to the audience which mode they should be in. Are we learning now, or are we laughing?
Exactly.
Okay, let's zoom out a bit. We've got these 3 different stories: Walls, the traffic stop, Don Lemon.
Right. And that brings us to the narrative threading. As it is now, the episode feels like 3 separate stories that are just kind of loosely connected by anger. It's not a cohesive narrative about, say, the breakdown of the rule of law.
So the theme is just leftists are crazy, but you think there's a stronger, deeper thread that's being missed?
I do. The jump from Congress to a street in Portland, then to a church, it feels disjointed.
Yeah, the transition is literally, anyway, moving on.
Right. And you miss this huge opportunity to draw a stronger thematic line connecting them. It feels more like a compilation video than a video essay.
So what's the suggestion for a unifying theme? Because they are very different settings. C-SPAN, a cell phone, a documentary.
The suggestion is to explicitly thread a specific theme through all 3. Something like, let's call it the shield of identity.
The shield of identity. I like that.
Show how the same psychological mechanism is at play in the halls of Congress and on a random street corner.
Okay, so how does that look in practice? How do you connect Tim Walz to that woman in Portland?
You connect their behaviors explicitly. You point out that Tim Walz refuses to answer yes or no to evade accountability through confusion.
Okay.
Then you cut to the Portland woman crying, "I'm just a mom," and you say she's evading accountability through victimhood.
And Don Lemon?
Don Lemon claims it's an act of journalism to evade accountability through his professional status.
Oh, I see. They're all pulling a card.
They are all pulling a card to get out of trouble.
Wow.
So you frame the whole critique not as look at these crazy people, but as an analysis of how different levels of society, government, media, citizen, all use the exact same tactic.
It's a pattern.
It's a pattern. You can literally say, notice the pattern. Walz uses his rank, the woman uses her gender, Lemon uses his job. They all think their identity puts them above the law. That turns 3 clips into one cohesive political philosophy.
That elevates the material so much. It moves it from just observation to actual synthesis. That's a huge takeaway for the listener.
Exactly.
Okay, now let's look at the legal predictions. The creator is very, very confident about where these people are going.
Extremely confident. And that's our 4th point. Making these absolute guarantees about legal outcomes based on news clips creates a huge risk of credibility loss if, those outcomes don't happen.
The argument is basically that they're all going to jail.
Correct. We hear Tim Walz is going to jail, Don Lemon is going to prison, this fat expletive is going to jail. He even says Lemon is on the fast track to jail.
Right.
Now, to his credit, he cites the FACE Act, 18 U.S.C. 248. He talks about fraud allegations. The research is good.
But
stating these things as facts, he is going to jail. It just sets the creator up for failure.
yeah, if Don Lemon just pays a fine or if nothing ever happens with Walz, the creator looks like they were just, wishful thinking?
Exactly. Or that they don't understand how the system actually works. And once you lose that credibility, the audience stops trusting your analysis on everything else.
So what's the suggestion? You can't just stop talking about the law.
No, you just temper the predictions while keeping the severity of the allegations. Frame it around the strength of the evidence, not the certainty of the verdict.
Okay, so you can be 100% sure about the evidence without being 100% sure about the judge.
That's the perfect way to put it.
So give me an example. How would you rephrase the Don Lemon line?
Instead of Don Lemon is going to prison, which you can't control, you say something like, Don Lemon filmed himself committing what appears to be a direct violation of the FACE Act, basically handing the DOJ a perfect case on a silver platter.
I like that. It puts the focus on Lemon's stupidity.
Right. It emphasizes that Lemon gave them the evidence. And for Tim Walz, instead of bros going to jail, you say something like, the testimony in Congress exposes a liability that could dismantle his political future, especially regarding oversight of that $18 billion fraud ring.
That sounds way more authoritative.
It sounds like cold, hard analysis. He's going to jail sounds like hope.
Yeah, it's a subtle shift, but it really does make the accusation hit harder because it sounds more grounded. Okay, one last point. Let's talk about how the creator handles the arguments from the other side.
Right, because they do try to explain themselves.
They do.
And this is a really important one for engagement. The critique here is that the creator just dismisses opposing views as retarded. And in doing so, he misses this golden chance to actually dismantle their logic for the audience.
So he makes a strong case against Don Lemon, but you're saying he doesn't really explain why Lemon is wrong.
He doesn't explain the mechanism of the error. There's that moment where Lemon says, protesting is about making people uncomfortable. He says it with a straight face.
Yeah.
The creator just laughs at it, calls it insane. But that's a missed opportunity, because that argument that protests are supposed to be disruptive is super common.
You hear it all the time.
All the time. So just laughing at it is way less effective than explaining why it's legally and morally bankrupt in this specific context.
So the suggestion is to, sort of steel man the argument before you destroy it?
Yes. Explain why the opponent thinks they're right, and then use the facts to show why they're wrong. Don't just tell me he's wrong, show me.
How would that look with the Lemon clip specifically?
Okay, so when Lemon claims he was chronicling a protest, you acknowledge it. You say, okay, Don's right, journalists do have a right to be at protests. However, and then you explain where the line was crossed. Entering private property after being told to leave, actively participating instead of observing, you explain the difference between a public square and a private church.
That's really powerful because it arms the listener for their own arguments.
It arms them. Exactly. And with the pastor and the protesters, the pastor says, we're here to worship, and they scream profanities at him.
Right.
The creator calls them demons. Understandable emotional reaction. But instead, you can analyze the specific clash of values. You have the sanctity of space versus the right to disrupt. Explain that the right to disrupt ends at the door of private property.
You're giving your audience ammunition, not just insults.
You are giving them a legal and moral argument to use.
That seems to be the through line for all of this feedback. It's about leveling up the discourse.
It is. I mean, the source material has great energy, a lot of passion. The creator's done the research. We're not trying to kill that energy.
No.
We're just trying to channel it so it hits harder. We want this to be a scalpel, not just a hammer.
Okay, so to recap. First, we're saying reduce the reliance on those ad hominem slurs.
Yep. Replace them with wit that targets hypocrisy. It's just higher status.
Second, create some space between the serious theological points and the crude humor. Give the Bible verses some room to land.
Third, thread that unified theme, like the shield of identity, through all of the clips to make it a cohesive essay.
Make the connection explicit.
Exactly. And fourth, be precise with the legal prediction. Don't promise jail time, promise liability.
And finally, actually engage with the other side's arguments. Dismantle them. Don't just mock them.
Right.
This submission has a really strong, unique voice. The goal here is just to refine the delivery so the strength of the evidence isn't overshadowed by the style.
Yeah. You want the listener to walk away thinking, wow, that was a devastating critique of Don Lemon, not, wow, that guy sure said retard a lot.
You want the subject of your video to look like the fool, not you.
That is the ultimate win.
We would love to see how this script evolves. We invite you to refine the work based on these suggestions and send it back in for another look. We look forward to it.
Absolutely. Keep finding out.
That's it for this critique.